Welcome back to MFO, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. I've been wanting to do this episode for quite a while now. One of the things that I did over the last month or so is kind of evaluate all the systems on my boat, whether it be my electronics, my motor, my power poles, my batteries. I evaluated all of them to make sure that I was happy with the way things were working, because I was in the process of not only selling this boat and making sure that I can describe and talk about each one of those systems, but also in reordering my new boat if there was anything that I wasn't happy with, that I needed to look at modifying, changing, looking into a new manufacturer or anything like that. One of the issues, the batteries, I was happy to say came out in my evaluation as an A+. I mean, I had absolutely zero complaints the entire season. Never had a situation where I had a dead battery. Never had a situation where I was needing to use a jump starter to jump my main motor or anything like that. A+ on my batteries. And they were brand new batteries from a different company this last year. So I want to come back and talk about the batteries that I chose, as well as the things that I did differently to make sure that my batteries were always in tip-top shape. You'll want to hear that. We'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back to Mark Fisher Outdoors, everybody. I'm Mark Fisher. So what I'm talking about is my batteries today, and the new batteries that I used for the first time this year were Norsk batteries, Norsk lithium batteries. They, as I said earlier, they worked phenomenally. I never had a situation where I had dead battery, never had a situation where I ran out of trolling motor or anything like that. And again, guys, I have to reiterate this. You guys look at a full day of fishing as, man, we got out there real early in the morning, 6 in the morning, and we fished all the way until dinner time. At 6 o'clock, that's 12 hours. But when you're practicing for a tournament and we're getting up and we're getting out at 4 in the morning and it's daylight in the summertime until 8:30, 9 o'clock, we're literally out there on the water that entire time. It gets to be 14 hours on the water running that trolling motor, and never had a situation where my graphs went out, my main motor didn't start, my trolling motor went out. Those Norsk lithiums were phenomenal. Now, great batteries, but I'm also telling you that I did some things to make sure that they stayed that way. The first thing that I would talk about is the onboard charger. Now, I happen to use a Precision onboard charger from Minn Kota. I think that the PowerPole Charge is another great onboard charging system. In fact, the onboard charge has Bluetooth capability, so you can check it on your phone. You can make adjustments from your phone. You can read it, know exactly. You can be in the house and check to see how your batteries are charging. The PowerPole Charge, from what I understand, is a phenomenal charging system as well. I'm kind of old school and I go back to the Minn Kota Precision. You do need to make sure that your onboard charging system is set up to be able to charge the types of batteries that you have. If you have AGM batteries and then you have lithium batteries, you need to be able to set that onboard charger so that it's charging lithium batteries versus AGMs. You don't just plug it in and go. They're different batteries and they have different charging requirements. So make sure that you get that set up properly using your onboard charging manual to know how to get that set up. Now, when I'm in my garage here and my boat's at home, my boat's always on a charger. And because it's an onboard charger and because of the way this system is set up, when it needs a charge, it does it. When it doesn't, it just shuts it off and monitors it. Now, I use that same system for guys that store their boats here in the winter, except I do one thing to modify that, and that is that because I don't want all 15 boats that I store in the winter to be running like that, I'll go and kind of do them on a rotation where I'll have 5 boats being charged. They'll have those onboard chargers that are monitoring the batteries, giving them a charge when they need it, and they'll shut off. And then what I'll do is I'll go and unplug those 5 boats, plug in another 5 boats, and let them do it. And while that's happening, these 10 boats that are unplugged are actually having the batteries drain a little bit. But I do that every week, so the batteries haven't drained too much. The cold has helped to drain the batteries, but then they'll go and get back on the charger. That keeps them cycling through. Okay, we're losing charge, and now we're getting charged up. We're losing charge, and now we're getting charged up. Just like, you know, you would if you went out on the water and used your batteries and things like that. We like to do that in the wintertime because that keeps those batteries in that routine of losing a little bit of charge and going up. We don't want to get them to a point where because of the cold, they're left unattended for a long period of time and they lose a tremendous amount of charge, but we make sure that we don't do that. So guys, if you're monitoring your batteries and you're keeping track of whether they're charged, that's one of the first things that I was doing. And then there's a couple of things that I wanted to talk about just in relation to safety to be aware of. Obviously, when you're using power cords, the lower the gauge, meaning if you have a 10 gauge wire versus a 18 gauge wire, the 10 gauge is the thicker kind. It's the safer kind, and it's going to be the more expensive kind. So as you're thinking about that, what you want to do in terms of charging is you want to use the heaviest gauge and the shortest length possible to charge. So when I'm in my garage, I have about 10 feet from the wall outlet to my boat. I want to have a 10-foot extension cord. I don't want to be using my 100-foot extension cord in the garage when I'm only going 10 feet. It's the most efficient to use the shortest extension cord with the highest gauge that you can afford to do. And when I say most efficient, I mean most efficient and safest, because what you're doing at that point, you don't have to coil it. You don't ever want to coil your extension cord. You want to make sure that your extension cord is in good shape, and you want to use the shortest one possible. When I said don't coil it, coiling an extension cord, if you had an extension cord that had a cut, had a nick, and you had that extension cord coiled, what you're doing is you're risking the fact that you might get a heat spot. That heat spot might get conducted to the rest of the parts of the extension cord that it's coiled up over, and you're risking a fire hazard. So when it comes to safety issues, don't coil your extension cord. Keep it short. Never use an extension cord that has the ground plug cut off of it or missing. You always want to make sure that that ground plug is on there, that third prong, that top prong. You want to make sure that that's on there. And then obviously make sure that your extension cord doesn't have any cuts, burns, nicks, anything like that, where the sheathing is brought off of that. So if you can do those things to make sure that you're safe, and then get your battery charged, make sure that they're on there, that would be my suggestion when it comes to keeping those batteries in tip-top shape and making sure that you have your electronics, have your motor, have your trolling motor, and everything is working every time you push the button and get out on the water. Guys, we appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that like. Send us your comments. We'll see you again tomorrow for another episode of Mark Fisher Outdoors. Take care, everybody.